I, 54 male, have a daughter, Rachel, 22 female, who, until recently, was engaged to a great guy, Tom, 24 male. They had been together for 4 years, and Tom felt like part of the family. He's a genuinely good person, kind, respectful, and from everything I've seen, deeply in love with Rachel. I thought they had a solid relationship and was looking forward to seeing them build a life together. But then everything unraveled. Here's some context. Tom proposed to Rachel about a year ago, and he gave her a beautiful engagement ring that had been in his family for generations. It originally belonged to Tom's great-grandmother, and his late mother wore it as well. When she passed away, the ring was passed down to Tom with the expectation that he would one day give it to the woman he wanted to marry. It was his way of including his mother in his future life, even though she was no longer around. This ring was incredibly sentimental, and as I later learned, worth a staggering $30,000. I thought Rachel understood the significance of this ring, but apparently, I was very, very wrong. A few months ago, I started noticing some changes in Rachel's behavior. She was less interested in wedding planning and didn't seem as excited when talking about Tom, and generally acted distant whenever he was around. I brushed it off as nerves or cold feet, but things escalated quickly. Out of the blue, Tom came to me, visibly upset, and told me Rachel had been having an affair with his best friend, Jake, 26 male. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I thought there was no way she could betray Tom like that, especially not with his best friend. But, as it turns out, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't just a one-time mistake either. They'd been secretly seeing each other for months, and Tom had only found out after a mutual friend spilled the truth. Naturally, he confronted Rachel, who didn't deny it. Apparently, she confessed everything, even going so far as to say she felt alive in the affair, in ways she hadn't in her relationship with him. It was a cruel, heartless way to break someone's heart, especially after all Tom had invested emotionally in their relationship. But the final blow came when Tom asked about the engagement ring. He wanted it back, not for the value, but for the memories and sentiment attached to it. He'd lost his mother at a young age, and this ring was one of the last tangible connections he had to her. I figured Rachel had stashed it away somewhere in her room, so I went to ask her for it. That's when she dropped a bombshell that left me speechless. Rachel had pawned the ring. Not only that, but she had used the money to fund a luxury vacation to the Maldives with Jake. She'd taken a priceless family heirloom, something that Tom's mother had cherished, and sold it to pay for a lavish getaway with the man she'd betrayed him with. I was horrified. I couldn't comprehend how she could do something so heartless, so thoughtless, and so fundamentally wrong. When I asked her why she would do this, she shrugged it off, saying the ring was just a piece of jewelry, and that she wanted to treat herself to something fun. I don't think I've ever felt that kind of rage before in my life. I was furious, not only for Tom, who had been cruelly betrayed, but for the callousness my own daughter showed. She had been handed a symbol of love, family, and legacy, and she had thrown it away like it was nothing. I couldn't believe it. The person standing in front of me felt like a stranger, not the daughter I had raised. That night, after cooling off a bit, I made a decision. Rachel has a substantial college fund saved up. Over the years, I'd set aside money to help her with her education and make sure she had a solid financial foundation to start her life. The fund currently sits at around $40,000, more than enough to help her get through college or pursue other educational opportunities. Well, I decided that Rachel was going to have to face some real consequences for what she'd done. I contacted Tom, apologized on her behalf, and told him that I'd like to give him the money from Rachel's college fund to help compensate for the loss of the ring. I figured it was the least I could do for him after what he'd been put through. Tom was shocked, initially refusing, but I insisted. I told him he deserved it, especially since Rachel had stripped him of something irreplaceable. Eventually, he accepted, and I transferred the money to him. When Rachel found out, she was livid. She screamed at me, calling me all sorts of names, and accused me of ruining her future. She said it was her money and that I had no right to give it away, especially not to her ex-fiancé. She claimed I was taking his side and that I had no idea what their relationship was really like. She also made some ridiculous claim that Tom had never made her feel appreciated and that Jake gave her the attention she deserved. I told her that as her father, I had set up that college fund with the intention of helping her build a better life, not fund her betrayal and selfishness. I explained that actions have consequences, and this was her wake-up call. I told her that she needed to grow up and take responsibility for her actions, especially when they cause harm to other people. Since then, Rachel has completely cut me off. She refuses to answer my calls, texts, or any attempt I've made to reach out. She's even told other family members that I've disowned her and that I'm trying to ruin her life out of spite. Some relatives have sided with her, arguing that I went too far, that she's young and bound to make mistakes, and that I should have handled it differently. They think I should have given her a second chance and kept the college fund intact so she could still pursue her dreams. But from where I stand, Rachel's behavior wasn't just a mistake. It was a series of calculated, hurtful decisions that showed a lack of empathy, integrity, and respect for others. She didn't just cheat on Tom. She destroyed a priceless family heirloom for a vacation with his best friend. I felt like giving her college fund to Tom was my way of setting things right, or at least doing what I could to help him move forward after what she put him through. Now, with Rachel refusing to talk to me and family members divided, I'm starting to question whether I went too far. I wonder if I should have handled it differently. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that she needed to face real consequences for what she did. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for giving my daughter's college fund to her ex-fiancé after she pawned his family heirloom to go on vacation with his best friend? Rachel's behavior was beyond selfish and entitled. That ring wasn't just an expensive piece of jewelry. It was a family heirloom, a part of Tom's mother's legacy. She showed absolutely no remorse for her actions, and honestly, she needed to learn that actions have consequences. OP did the right thing by standing up for Tom, and maybe this will be the wake-up call Rachel needs. And OP's daughter's fiancé definitely dodged a bullet here. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. She pawned a $30,000 heirloom to fund a trip with her affair partner, and thinks she's the victim here? Rachel's behavior was shocking, and I can't believe she would do something so heartless. I understand why you gave Tom the college fund. Sometimes people need to be held accountable, and this is one of those times. OP, you're absolutely not the a-hole. I can't believe your daughter thought she could get away with something so cruel, and then complain when faced with consequences. You put that fund together to help her build a life, not to reward her for betraying someone who cared about her. You did what was necessary. Wow, not the a-hole. Rachel sounds incredibly self-centered, and I'm sorry you had to find out this way. That money was intended to help her succeed, not to erase the pain she caused. She'll have to live with the consequences, and maybe one day she'll realize why you did what you did. Update. Thank you, everyone, for your responses and advice. Reading through your comments has been both reassuring and eye-opening. I appreciate those of you who reminded me that sometimes tough love is necessary, even when it comes with backlash. After going no contact with me, Rachel moved out and is currently staying with friends. She's still refusing to communicate, and through mutual family, I've heard that she's actively spreading her version of events, claiming that I took everything from her. Despite the pushback, I stand by my decision. While it's painful to have my own daughter resent me, I know that the college fund was intended to support her growth and success, not to reward the kind of betrayal she showed. As for Tom, he's expressed his gratitude several times, saying that the money has allowed him to start fresh without feeling the heavy loss of his family heirloom. He's cut ties with Jake as well and is working on rebuilding his life. He's even reached out, offering support, which is incredibly kind, considering the circumstances. I wish things had turned out differently for him, and I'm grateful that he's managed to take this painful experience in stride. While the situation with Rachel remains unresolved, I've come to terms with the fact that sometimes consequences have to be faced head-on. I hope that one day she'll realize that my actions weren't meant to ruin her, but to remind her that actions have repercussions. I know I may never be forgiven, but I'd rather face that than let her continue on this destructive path unchallenged. Thank you again for your insights and advice. It's been a tough experience, but I'm determined to stand firm in my decision, even if it means the relationship with my daughter remains broken. My 27 female mother died of an illness when I was 7, and my father, 52 male, remarried when I was 9 to my stepmother, 42 female. Prior to getting married, my father and stepmother did have an affair while my mother was ill. The affair resulted in Rose, 20 female, my half-sister. Growing up, I have always resented my father and stepmother. Rose and I have not had the best relationship, and my father has been openly biased towards her, while my stepmother would often pick my side in arguments. I am engaged to my college sweetheart, John, 27 male, and we will be married in 2 months. We are also currently expecting our first child. I'm on good terms with his entire family, and I am particularly close to his sister, Emily, 25 female. Last week, we had planned a double-date movie night. Something came up, and Emily's date was unable to attend. It so turned out that Rose had heard my phone call with Emily, and she pleaded me that she wanted to attend the movie night event with the extra ticket. I didn't want Rose to join in, and so I told her that I was sorry and that I didn't want her to be there. She complained to our father, who yelled at me for being an ungrateful sister and useless like my late mother. I was hurt by this, and so I relented to allowing Rose to accompany us, after my stepmother begged me. The 4 of us ended up going to the movie theater together. During the middle of the movie, I felt incredibly nauseous and hence left to the woman's restroom with Emily. Afterwards, I decided to take a walk to feel better, and Emily said she wanted to give me company. Although Josh asked me if I needed him to come, I told him he could enjoy the movie. After the movie was over, Josh pulled me aside and said that after Emily and I left, Rose had been flirting with him and tried to kiss him multiple times. He told me he was annoyed and uncomfortable, and this only made me feel angry. The next day, I slept over at Josh's house. I yelled at Rose for behaving inappropriately towards my fiancé, to which she responded, "Maybe I'll be the one marrying him." To which I responded, "What else can I expect from you when you're the daughter of insert mother's name?" My father screamed at me for insulting his wife. My stepmother started crying and said that she loved me like her own daughter and would never expect this coming from me. Am I the a-hole? I think I could be the a-hole because I've rarely seen my stepmother cry during family dinner, and I think that I may have hurt her feelings. I've never liked her from since I was a child, but she's always treated me nicely. I feel that my hormones made me a bit more sensitive than usual, and I snapped. I spoke about this matter to Josh, and he is furious that my stepmother and dad made a whole scene to make me feel bad. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They had an affair while your mother was dying. Just because you may have never mentioned it before does not mean it didn't affect you. Rose and her mother were called out for their behavior and are now mad over facts. Don't want to be called out for immoral acts that impact other people? Don't commit them. I'm going with not the a-hole with the reason that your father insulted your deceased mother and then got offended when you insulted your stepmom for the actions they've both done. He shouldn't be saying insulting things like that, then get offended when someone gives him a taste of his own medicine. As well as in terms of your stepmother, feeling offended and crying. That doesn't take away from the fact that she hooked up with your father when your mother was fighting for her life. When your father should have been by you and your mother's side. My stepmother has always been nice to me, but I figured it's probably because she feels guilty for having an affair with my father while she was acquainted with my mother and I. For reference, she was my father's secretary. Despite my dislike for her, I've decided to apologize. Update. Following the incident, I decided to apologize to my stepmother, after avoiding her for 2 days. I said that I was very frustrated with my sister Rose for acting disrespectful and inappropriately towards my fiancé, and that instead of taking out the anger on Rose, I ended up taking out the anger on my stepmother. I did, however, ask her to tell Rose to stop behaving in such a crude manner around my fiancé, which we both feel is uncomfortable. Her response to that was, "Rose is only a little girl, so she's probably just playing with you. Don't take this too seriously. Your sister is a very kind person." I was a bit taken aback by her answer, because I don't know if Rose is putting on a facade in front of her mother, or if it's my stepmother who's really acting. Following this conversation, I gathered my entire family and informed them that my fiancé and I had made a decision regarding our wedding. I told them that I was not going to invite them to the wedding. I also said that I had already spoken to my fiancé's family about this, and my father-in-law has agreed to walk me down the aisle. My dad was very enraged by this, and he said I was an ungrateful daughter for not letting him walk me down the aisle. Rose said that I was a cruel sister for not inviting her to the wedding, and that she had wanted to be my maid of honor. My stepmother looked very disappointed, and said that after our conversation today, she thought we had resolved everything between us. She told me that after my mother died, she thought that I thought of her as my second mother, but she now knows she was wrong. I told her that no matter how nicely she treated me, no one can ever replace my mother. To that, my father yelled at me for being an ungrateful daughter, yes again, and he told me that from now on, I was no longer his daughter and that I was not going to receive any inheritance. He told me to get out of his house, to which I replied that I would be moving out in 2 days. I was incredibly frustrated with this conversation overall, and I left to my fiancé's house. There, I was warmly greeted by my mother-in-law, who offered to make me a meal. I spoke about my plan to move out in 2 days, because I was pretty much kicked out. My mother-in-law said that I would always be welcomed and loved here. She told me that she was glad that she has another daughter to take care of, and gave me a hug. I started crying, because those were just the words I needed to hear after a terrible week. I thanked her for being sweet to me and hugged her back. Overall, this incident made me realize that perhaps I would have been much happier if I'd moved out of my house a while ago. I, 30 male, am my divorced father's only son. My dad was the best dad ever. He never missed visitation, always paid child support, loved unconditionally, and taught me every life lesson I know. He was also very vocal to everyone, including his friends, past girlfriends, and my current stepmother, that I was the most important and most loved person in his life. I appreciated it and felt the same way my entire childhood, but sometimes it was awkward for my stepmother. While I was in college, he developed a life-threatening cancer and wasn't given much time to live. Now in this state, if a divorced and remarried spouse dies without a will, his or her surviving children get everything. So naturally, my stepmother was very adamant about his need to get his affairs in order and create a will. To my amazement, he did, and when he died, he left her everything. Now, fast forward 10 years, and she has recently gotten sick and created her own will, leaving everything to her new live-in boyfriend of 2 years. The house, land, farm, everything my dad worked 3 jobs for while she stayed home, all of it. I read the will, and not only me, but my children, her grandchildren, whom she loves and sees often, is nowhere to be found. I was completely shell-shocked, so I consulted a lawyer, and he found something. My father did not just create a will leaving her everything. They created a joint will together, where I inherit everything after they both die, a detail she omitted, and it's contractual. These kinds of wills, which don't happen often, can't be changed, especially after one spouse dies, probably for obvious purposes. Now her boyfriend is very excited about her will and is starting to develop the land and improve the house. I am very excited as well. So tell me, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Also not a lawyer, but that's who I'd contact, because he will own all the materials. I don't know how that will fly for you. If anything, I'd bring this up now and make sure nothing goes further until you know all the details legally. Yes, would be the a-hole. Get the will stuff settled, and don't let him continue to improve the property uninformed, unless you really want to cloud the picture in the future, because you could create legal problems for yourself down the road. Your beef is really with stepmom, not him. Once he's been informed of the binding will, and they are binding, my grandfather had one as well with his second, much later in life wife, so his property went to his children, not hers, and vice versa. Then his improvements are being done while informed if he's still doing them. My daughter's wedding was last October. My wife, her stepmother, is a hairdresser, so my daughter asked her to color her hair. My daughter is naturally blonde and wanted even blonder hair. I don't know what went wrong, but my daughter's hair got damaged only 10 days before the wedding. It was a complete disaster, and most of her hair has since been cut off. Come to find out, my daughter had done some hair treatment a year prior, and it reacted badly with the hair coloring. My daughter is adamant she told my wife about it, but my wife says that's not the case. My daughter was understandably distraught, but she started accusing my wife of doing it on purpose. I know it was a bad situation, but my wife has never been anything but kind to my daughter, which is why I married her in the first place. My wife was inconsolable when it happened. She apologized over and over. She bought a $1,200 hairpiece for the wedding, and we gave the photographer another $1,000 to do retouching on my daughter's hair to make it look perfect. It wasn't ideal, but we didn't know what else to do. My daughter was uncomfortable throughout the wedding and confronted us at our home a few days later and screamed at my wife for ruining her wedding. My wife was literally unable to sleep, so we wrote my daughter a check for everything the wedding cost, hoping that might help us come together again. But it has not helped at all. My daughter continued to tell everyone my wife did it on purpose. My wife's business was flooded with bad reviews by my daughter's friends, and she had to shut down last January. My wife has since become very depressed and withdrawn. 2 months ago, my daughter sent out around 50 wedding pictures in a WhatsApp group that has over 30 family members, and my wife was not in any of them. Someone commented about it, and she responded with, "I don't need my dad's witch wife in my wedding pictures." I admit I lost my cool and wrote the following message. "That is enough. Sarah has been beside herself over this. She has apologized more than 100 times, and the money we gave you to pay for your entire wedding was half from her too. That was money we were not able to spare, especially now. I'm sorry things happened the way they did, but it was an honest mistake. There comes a time when it's time to move on. Stop bad-mouthing your stepmother and leave her alone. I thought I raised you to have more compassion than this." I then received a bunch of messages from my daughter and ex-wife, which I have refused to respond to. Was I wrong to write that? I don't deny that my daughter has a right to be angry, but to continually attack my wife for an accident for this long isn't okay. My daughter has basically cut me off. My wife is still extremely affected by this. Not the a-hole. Dude, you were respectful in comparison to what she wrote in the group chat. Also, paying for the wedding? Your daughter is an entitled a-hole for bad-mouthing your wife, and then the reviews. If she had the balls, so to speak, then don't accept the money. Oh, wow. Honestly, if I was your wife, I would be looking into legal avenues. Your daughter has ruined her life, taking everything she can from her. I wouldn't be surprised if she gave you an ultimatum between her and your wife as this escalates. This clearly isn't your fault, but your ex sounds just lovely, and I'm sure she has her fingers in this pie. Not the a-hole. In fact, the way you tried to placate the situation just made it worse. What happened was a tragic mistake, but just a mistake. Your child, she is acting like one, is malicious.